I was on the phone with my Aunt Janet, laughing about something silly, when I mentioned how excited I was for Lauren's wedding next Saturday. I had already picked out my dress. Emerald green. Lauren said it would complement the bridesmaid's sage. I had taken 2 days off work. I had wrapped the gift, a gorgeous set of ceramic serving bowls that Lauren had mentioned wanting months ago. Everything was ready. I was ready to stand beside my sister on the most important day of her life. And then Aunt Janet went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of someone listening. The other kind. The kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. I laughed nervously into the silence. What? Did I say something wrong? 3 seconds passed. 4. Then Aunt Janet spoke, and her voice was so careful, so gentle, that I knew something was terribly wrong before she even finished the sentence. "Zoe, honey, the wedding was last weekend." I thought she was joking. I actually waited for the punchline. But it never came. "I saw you weren't there," she continued. "I assumed you were sick. But then your mother said you sent a gift and your best wishes. She said you had a work emergency." The phone felt suddenly heavy in my hand. My mouth opened, but no words came out. "Aunt Janet," I finally managed. "I never sent anything. I didn't even know." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I don't remember hanging up the phone. I just remember my thumb moving across the screen, opening Instagram with hands that had started to tremble. I hadn't checked social media in a few days. I had been busy with work, busy preparing for a wedding that had apparently already happened without me. Lauren's feed loaded, and there it was. Photo after photo, posted 5 days ago. The venue was a vineyard in Connecticut, bathed in golden hour light. I recognized the flowers from the Pinterest board Lauren had shown me months ago. I recognized the cake, the 3-tier design she had agonized over. I recognized every single detail because I had listened to her talk about them for 18 months. And then I saw the family portrait. Mom in a champagne-colored dress, her hair perfectly styled. Dad looking proud in his navy suit. Lauren glowing in white lace, clutching her bouquet, beaming at the camera. Behind them, aunts and uncles and cousins I had grown up with. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. There was no empty chair saved in my honor. No caption that said we missed you or wish you were here. No acknowledgement that anyone noticed my absence at all. I scrolled through the comments. "Congratulations. Beautiful couple. What a perfect day." Cousin Megan, who I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, had written "Best Wedding Ever" with 3 heart emojis. I kept scrolling, searching for something. I don't know what. Maybe a comment asking where Zoe was. Maybe a photo where someone looked incomplete, like they were missing a piece. There was nothing. I wasn't forgotten. That was the thought that crystallized in my mind, sharp and cold. You don't forget your own sister. You don't accidentally leave someone off a guest list when you've talked about the wedding for 18 months. You don't fail to notice when a family member simply doesn't show up. They didn't forget me. They chose not to include me. And then they lied about it. I set the phone down on my coffee table and stared at the wall. My apartment was quiet. The emerald dress hung on the back of my closet door, tags still attached. The gift sat on my kitchen counter, wrapped in silver paper with a white ribbon. "I am Zoe Caldwell. I am 32 years old. I work as a senior financial analyst at a consulting firm in Boston. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Back Bay. I drive a practical sedan that I bought used and paid off in 3 years. I have a retirement account that would make most of my peers jealous because I have always been responsible. I have always been careful. I have always been the one who shows up. When Dad had his gallbladder surgery 6 years ago, I took 2 weeks off work to help Mom take care of him. When Lauren's car broke down in college, I drove 4 hours in the middle of the night to rescue her. When Mom wanted to renovate the kitchen but couldn't qualify for a loan, I co-signed. When Lauren maxed out her credit cards 3 years ago, I paid off $12,000 as a gift because she was too ashamed to tell our parents. I have always been the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who fixes things. And I own a lake house in New Hampshire, 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a dock that stretches into still water. I bought it 5 years ago after saving for 8 years. No vacations, no designer bags, no splurges. Just a dream of a quiet place by the water where my family could gather. I bought that house for us. I pictured Thanksgiving dinners around the big wooden table, Lauren's future children running on the dock, Mom reading by the fireplace while Dad grilled on the porch. I built a shrine to a family togetherness that, I was beginning to realize, may never have existed. The sun set outside my window. I didn't move to turn on the lights. I just sat there in the growing darkness, replaying every conversation I had had with Lauren over the past year. Every text about flower arrangements, every phone call about seating charts, every excited update about the venue, the dress, the menu. She had talked to me about this wedding for 18 months. She had asked my opinion on everything from the font on the invitations to the flavor of the cake, and then she had walked down the aisle without me. I picked up my phone again, scrolled through my texts with Lauren. Our last message was from 2 months ago. She had written something casual about the guest list being finalized. I had responded with a heart emoji and the words "can't wait." She had read the message. The blue check marks were right there. She had read it, and she had never responded. Because there was nothing to respond to. She had already decided I wasn't coming. The only person who didn't know was me. My phone buzzed with a new notification. A text from Mom. "Hi, honey. How was your week? Dad and I are thinking of coming to Boston next month. Maybe we could have dinner. No mention of the wedding, no explanation, no apology. Just casual small talk, as if she hadn't spent the weekend celebrating her daughter's marriage while I sat at home with an unworn dress and an ungiven gift." I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. For 32 years, I had always responded to my mother's texts immediately. I had always been available, always been accommodating, always been the daughter who never caused problems. But for the first time in my life, I didn't respond. I set the phone face down on the coffee table, walked to the window. The Boston skyline glittered in the darkness, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere out there, my sister was a married woman. My parents were probably looking at wedding photos, reliving the beautiful day. My family was whole and happy and complete. And I was here, alone, wondering how I had become so invisible to the people who were supposed to love me most. Something shifted inside me that night. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quieter than that, like a thread snapping somewhere deep inside, a thread I didn't even know had been holding everything together. I looked at the emerald dress one more time. Then I closed the closet door. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. First, I needed answers. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, then at my phone, then at the ceiling again. The hours crawled by like they were mocking me. At 2 a.m, I found myself scrolling through Lauren's wedding photos again. I studied every face, looking for something. A hint of guilt. A flicker of discomfort. Someone who looked like they noticed the empty space where I should have been standing. But everyone was smiling. Everyone looked happy. The celebration was complete without me. At 4 a.m, I started drafting texts to my mother. I wrote and deleted at least a dozen messages. Some were angry, some were pleading, some were just one word. Why? But I sent none of them. I didn't know what to say because I didn't understand what had happened. At 6 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I made coffee I couldn't taste and sat at my kitchen table watching the sky turn gray, then pink, then pale blue. The emerald dress was still hanging on my closet door. I couldn't look at it anymore. By 7:30, I had made a decision. I was not going to wait for an explanation. I was not going to let them control the narrative. I was going to call my parents and demand answers. I dialed their landline at 8:30 because I knew they would both be awake. Thursday mornings were predictable at the Caldwell house. Dad would be reading the news on his tablet. Mom would be making her second cup of coffee. They would be comfortable and relaxed, enjoying their routine. Mom answered on the third ring. Her voice was bright, cheerful, completely normal. "Zoe, what a nice surprise." You're calling early. No tension, no guilt, no awkwardness, just pleasant morning chit-chat, as if nothing in the world was wrong. I forced myself to stay calm. I wanted to give them a chance to bring it up first, to acknowledge what had happened, to explain. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "Oh, wonderful. Just exhausted from the weekend, you know." She laughed lightly. "Weddings take so much out of you." The word hit me like a slap. Weddings. She said it so casually, like I had been there, like I knew exactly what she meant. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding, "I don't know. I wasn't there." Silence. 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then my mother let out a small sigh, the kind of sigh you make when a child brings up something inconvenient, when you're tired of explaining something obvious. "Oh, honey, I was wondering when you'd call about that." Not, "I'm so sorry." Not, "There was a terrible mistake." Not, "Let me explain." Just resignation. Acknowledgement that she had been waiting for this conversation and had already decided how it would go. My father's voice came on the line. He must have been listening the whole time. "Zoe, don't make this into a big thing." It was Lauren's day. She wanted it to be stress-free. I felt the words like a physical blow. Stress-free. As if my presence would have caused stress. As if I was a problem to be managed rather than a sister to be included. "What does that mean?" I asked. "How am I stress?" My mother took the phone back. Her voice shifted into that familiar tone, the one she used when I was a child and being difficult. Patient on the surface, condescending underneath. "You know how you are, sweetheart. You're very intense. You have opinions about everything. You analyze things. Lauren just wanted one day where she didn't have to worry about managing anyone's reactions." Managing my reactions. The phrase echoed in my head. As if I had ever caused a scene at a family event. As if I had ever done anything but smile and help and accommodate. "I wouldn't have caused problems," I said. "I would have just been happy for her." "Maybe not out loud," my father interjected. "But we would have felt it." "You have an energy, Zoe. It's judging. We thought the day would be calmer without your intensity." Calmer. Without me. My own parents had decided that their daughter's wedding would be better, happier, more peaceful if I simply wasn't there. "We discussed it as a family," my mother continued, "as if this made it better. We thought you'd actually be relieved not to have to come. You're always so busy with work. We didn't want to burden you." "That's not true," I said. "You know that's not true. I took time off. I bought a dress. I had a gift wrapped and ready." "Well," my mother said, her voice cooling, "it's done now. No point dwelling on it. Lauren is happy, Derek is wonderful, and we can all move forward." Move forward. As if my exclusion was a minor scheduling conflict. As if they hadn't erased me from the most important day of my sister's life and then lied to the entire family about why I wasn't there. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness, from something else. Something that felt like the first spark of anger I had allowed myself to feel in years. I sat in my kitchen, my cold coffee untouched, and I thought about my life. I thought about all the times I had shown up for this family, all the times I had given and helped and sacrificed. And I started to remember other things, other moments that I had filed away, explained away, forgiven and forgotten. Thanksgiving. 3 years ago. I had told the family I would drive up Wednesday night, but Tuesday evening I got a text from Lauren. "Hey, Mom said you're too busy to come. Don't worry, we understand." I had called immediately, confused. Mom laughed it off. "Oh, I just assumed. You're always working. We didn't want you to feel pressured." I drove up anyway, but when I arrived, the guest room had been given to a cousin. I slept on the couch, my 30th birthday. No party, no dinner, no card. I mentioned it to Mom a week later, trying to keep my voice light. Her response, "Oh honey, you never make a big deal about birthdays." I didn't think you'd want a fuss. But Lauren had gotten a surprise party for her 30th. 50 guests. A 3-tier cake, photos all over social media, Grandma Eleanor's funeral. I handled everything. The arrangements, the obituary, the flowers, the reception. I paid for most of it out of pocket because Lauren was going through a hard time and our parents were too grief-stricken. After the service, I overheard Mom telling a relative, "Zoe's so capable. Nothing phases her." She said it like a compliment. But what I heard was, she doesn't need us. She can handle anything. We don't have to worry about her. That was it, wasn't it? They didn't see me as a person who needed things. They saw me as a resource, capable, reliable, unfazable. Someone who handled problems, managed crises, wrote checks. Not someone who felt lonely or hurt or desperate to belong. I opened my laptop, pulled up my banking records. I needed to see it in numbers, in black and white. Lauren's credit card debt 3 years ago. $12,000. She had promised to pay me back. She never did. Mom and Dad's roof repair 4 years ago. $8,000. They said they would repay me when Dad's bonus came. It never came. Grandma's medical bills before she passed. I had covered nearly $15,000 for treatments that insurance wouldn't pay. Lauren's car insurance when she was between jobs. I paid it for 2 years. $4,800. The deposit for Derek's engagement ring. Lauren wanted something special, something Derek could be proud of. I contributed $3,000 because she asked. I added it up. Nearly $43,000 over 5 years. And that didn't count the time, the energy, the emotional labor of being the one who always fixed things. I wasn't a sister. I was a bank account with a heartbeat. And the interest rate was my dignity. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Janet. "Can we meet? There's something you need to know." Not over the phone. I stared at the message. Aunt Janet had always been the quiet observer in our family. Mom's younger sister, the one who noticed things but rarely spoke up. I typed back, "What is it?" Her response came quickly. "It's about your grandmother's estate, and why you never received anything." My heart stopped. Grandma's estate? I had been told there was nothing left, that the house went to medical bills and funeral costs, that there was no inheritance to divide. I texted, "Grandma didn't leave anything. Mom said the house was gone. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again." Then, "That's not true, Zoe, there's more. But I need to tell you in person. Can you meet me Saturday?" I looked at the emerald dress still hanging on my closet door. Then I got up, took it off the hanger, and folded it neatly into a donation bag. I wouldn't be needing it anymore. The cafe Aunt Janet chose was in Cambridge, tucked between a used bookstore and a dry cleaner. It was the kind of place where nobody would recognize us. The kind of place for conversations you don't want overheard. I arrived 15 minutes early. I ordered a black coffee and sat in a booth near the back watching the door. My leg bounced under the table. The coffee sat untouched, growing cold. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and old books, and soft jazz played from speakers I couldn't see. Everything felt too calm for what I suspected was coming. Aunt Janet walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. She looked older than I remembered. Deeper lines around her eyes, less color in her cheeks. She was carrying a worn leather folder, clutching it against her chest like it contained something precious. Or dangerous. She slid into the booth across from me. She didn't order anything. She just looked at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. Before I say anything, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need you to know that I should have told you sooner. I've been a coward, Zoe, and I'm sorry." My stomach dropped. Whatever this was, it was bigger than a missed wedding. "Tell me," I said. She took a deep breath. "Let me start with the wedding. What your mother told you, that they thought you'd be uncomfortable, that it was about Lauren wanting a stress-free day. That's not the full truth." She paused, gathering herself. "I was at the bridal shower 4 months ago. I overheard Lauren talking to your mother in the kitchen. Lauren was upset, agitated. She didn't know I was in the hallway. What did she say?" Aunt Janet's jaw tightened. She said, "I don't want her there. She always makes everything about herself." The words hit me like ice water. Lauren said that about me? Aunt Janet nodded. Your mother tried to reason with her, said people would ask questions if you weren't there, and Lauren said, then tell them she's busy. Tell them she sent a gift. I don't care. I just don't want her standing next to me looking like that. Looking like what? Perfect. Put together. Making me look like the mess I am. I sat back against the booth. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too warm. I had spent my whole life trying to be responsible, trying not to be a burden, and my sister resented me for it. Your sister has always been jealous of you, Aunt Janet said gently. You just never saw it because you were too busy taking care of everyone. You have the career, the savings, the stability. Lauren has always felt like she was living in your shadow. But I never made her feel that way. I never compared us. I helped her, I know. But that's not how she sees it. Every time you helped her, it reminded her that she needed help. And instead of being grateful, she built up resentment. And your parents never pushed back. They never told her that what she was asking was wrong. They just chose the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance. I was the difficult one, the obstacle, simply because I existed. So, the story about me sending a gift, I said slowly. The work emergency, that was all planned, your mother's idea. She told everyone at the wedding that you had an urgent project at work, but that you sent a beautiful gift and a heartfelt card. She even described the gift. A crystal vase from some fancy store in Boston. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She had details ready, she rehearsed it. She did, and everyone believed her. Why wouldn't they? Zoe's so busy with work. Zoe's always got something going on. It fit the story they've been telling about you for years. Did anyone question it? Did anyone think it was strange? A few of us wondered. Your cousin Megan asked where you were, but your mom shut it down fast. Said you'd been distant lately and the family was giving you space. The room seemed to tilt. Not only had they excluded me, they had rewritten the story so that I was the one pulling away. I was the one who had chosen not to come. The narrative was completely flipped. Aunt Janet reached into her leather folder. There's more, Zoe. This is the part I've been carrying for too long. She pulled out a stack of documents. Yellowed paper, legal letterhead, a faded envelope with my name on it. Your grandmother, she said. My mother. She left a will. A real one, notarized and filed with a lawyer. I didn't even know it existed until last year when I was going through some old boxes. I stared at the papers. I don't understand. Mom told me Grandma didn't leave anything. She said the house had a reverse mortgage, that everything went to medical bills and funeral costs. Aunt Janet shook her head slowly. There was no reverse mortgage. The house was paid off decades ago. But Eleanor didn't just own the house. She also owned a small apartment in downtown Boston, a 2-bedroom in the North End. She bought it in the 1970s when prices were low. By today's market, it's worth around $450,000. The number didn't register at first. $450,000. An apartment I had never heard of. She left it to you, Zoe. Aunt Janet slid a document across the table. The will says, and I quote, to my granddaughter Zoe Marie Caldwell, who has always reminded me of myself. Steady, generous, and overlooked. My grandmother's words, written for me, about me. I never received this, I whispered. I never knew any of this existed. I know. Because the letter from the estate lawyer was sent to your parents' house. You were staying there during the funeral, remember? But by the time it arrived, you had already gone back to Boston. So, someone intercepted it. Aunt Janet nodded grimly. She slid another document across the table. According to the county records I pulled, the apartment was sold 2 years ago, for $420,000. I looked at the paper, a deed transfer, a sale record, and at the bottom, a signature I recognized. Richard Caldwell, acting as legal representative for Zoe Marie Caldwell, my father. My father had sold my inheritance. How is this possible? I asked, my voice shaking. I never gave him permission. I never signed anything. Aunt Janet pulled out one more document. A power of attorney form, dated 3 years ago. At the bottom was my signature. Except it wasn't. The handwriting was close. Someone had studied my signature carefully. But the loop on the Z was too tight. The Y didn't extend far enough. I know my own handwriting. I had never signed this document. I had never even seen it. "I didn't sign this," I said. "I suspected as much." "Zoe, I think your father forged your signature to gain control of the property, and then he sold it. $420,000. Gone, without my knowledge or consent. Where did the money go?" Aunt Janet hesitated. "I don't have proof. But I have suspicions." She paused. Lauren was in serious financial trouble around that time, not just credit card debt. Her ex-boyfriend, the one before Derek, got her into some bad investments. Gambling, mostly. She owed nearly $400,000. The number was too close to be a coincidence. The timeline matched perfectly. "They used my inheritance," I said slowly, "to pay off Lauren's gambling debts." Aunt Janet reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm giving you everything I have. The will, the sale records, the power of attorney. What you do with it is your decision. But Zoe, this isn't just about a wedding. This is fraud. This is theft. Your parents committed a crime against you." I gathered the documents carefully, slid them back into the folder. My hands were steady now, even though my heart was pounding. "I need time to think," I said. "Whatever you decide, I'm on your side." I should have been from the start. I stood to leave, the folder tucked under my arm. It was heavier than it looked. Or maybe that was just the weight of everything inside. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Hey, been thinking about you. We should catch up soon. Miss you." 3 days ago, she had deliberately excluded me from the biggest day of her life. Now she wanted to catch up. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I took a screenshot. I had a feeling I was going to need evidence of everything from now on. Sunday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the leather folder from Aunt Janet spread open before me. The documents were arranged in neat rows. The will, the forged power of attorney, the property transfer records, the sale price. $420,000 that should have been mine. My first instinct was to call them, to scream into the phone and demand answers. To drive to their house and throw these papers in their faces and watch them try to explain how they could steal from their own daughter. But then I stopped myself. I had spent 32 years reacting to this family, accommodating them, explaining myself, giving them the benefit of the doubt, and every single time they had used my openness against me. They had rewritten conversations, twisted my words, made me feel like the unreasonable one. If I confronted them now, unprepared and emotional, they would do it again. They would coordinate their lies. They would destroy evidence. They would turn the rest of the family against me before I could prove anything. No, this time would be different. This time, I would be strategic. I opened my laptop and began to trace every financial connection I had with my family. It took most of Sunday and Monday to compile the full picture, and what I found made me sick. There was an automatic transfer of $600 every month to my parents. It was labeled Health Insurance Supplement. I had set it up 3 years ago when they complained about rising premiums. I told myself it was temporary. It never stopped. Lauren's car insurance was still on my policy, $180 every month drafted from my checking account. She had asked me to add her years ago when she couldn't afford her own. She never switched to her own plan. My mother's streaming services were billed to my credit card. All of them. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO, $62 a month that I had somehow stopped noticing. My father's golf club membership had renewed last year. I had paid for it temporarily because he was short on cash. It auto-renewed again this year. $800. Lauren's gym membership was still under my name. I had co-signed when she had bad credit. She never took responsibility for it. $90 a month. I added it up. Over $1,100 every single month was flowing from my accounts to support people who could not be bothered to invite me to a wedding. On Tuesday, I called my insurance company. I removed Lauren's car from my policy, effective immediately. The representative asked if I wanted to notify the other driver. I said no. On Wednesday, I logged into my bank and canceled the automatic transfer to my parents. No explanation. No warning, just stopped. On Thursday, I removed my mother's streaming services from my credit card and changed my card number entirely. On Friday, I called the golf club and informed them that Mr. Richard Caldwell would need to provide his own payment method going forward. I waited for the phone calls, the angry texts, the demands for explanation. But my phone stayed silent. No one had noticed yet. They were so accustomed to my money flowing toward them that they hadn't even registered it was still happening. They would notice soon enough. Friday evening, Maya Chen showed up at my apartment with Thai food and a bottle of wine. It was our tradition, established back in graduate school. Friday nights were for venting and laughing and solving the world's problems over pad thai and Pinot Grigio. Maya was 34, a litigation attorney with a mind like a steel trap and zero tolerance for nonsense. She was the only person outside my family who knew about the wedding. And now, sitting cross-legged on my couch, she was the only person who knew about the inheritance. She listened without interrupting. That was one of her skills as a lawyer and as a friend. She let me talk until I ran out of words. Then she set down her wine glass and looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "Zoe, I need you to hear something." I nodded. "You have spent your entire life making sure everyone else is comfortable. You smooth things over, you write checks, you show up. And what did it get you? A forged signature and a fake excuse for why you weren't at your sister's wedding." "I know," I said quietly. "For once in your life, let them feel your absence. Don't explain, don't argue, don't give them a chance to gaslight you. Just disappear. Let them figure out what life looks like without their ATM." I thought about that. The idea of simply stepping back and watching them scramble. No confrontation, no drama, just silence. "I'm going to the lake house this weekend," I said. "I need to think." Maya nodded approvingly. "Good. And Zoe, if you find anything else up there, anything at all, you call me. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is potentially criminal." After she left, I remembered something. There was a box at the lake house, Grandma Eleanor's belongings. I had brought it home after the funeral 3 years ago and never opened it. Life kept moving. Work kept demanding. Lauren kept needing. There was never time for grief. Never time to sit with what I had lost. Maybe it was time to open that box. Saturday morning, I drove north on I-93 and watched Boston shrink in my rearview mirror. The traffic thinned as I crossed into New Hampshire. Strip malls gave way to pine forests. The air changed, cleaner and sharper, smelling of cold water and autumn leaves. The lake house sat on 2 acres at the edge of Lake Winnipesaukee. It was small but solid. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water. I had saved for 8 years to buy it. 8 years of skipped vacations and secondhand furniture and saying no to myself over and over again. I had built this place for family gatherings that never happened, for holiday memories that never materialized, for a togetherness that existed only in my imagination. The house was quiet when I unlocked the door. Dust floated in the afternoon light. The smell of cedar wrapped around me like a memory. I hadn't been here in 4 months. Life kept getting in the way. Life and the endless demands of people who didn't appreciate me. I found the box in the guest room closet. Cardboard, taped shut, labeled in my own handwriting. "Grandma's things. Sort later." I carried it to the living room and set it on the coffee table. My hands trembled slightly as I cut the tape. Inside, I found pieces of a woman I had loved and lost. Old photographs of Grandma Eleanor as a young woman, standing in front of an apartment building I didn't recognize. Costume jewelry. A pearl brooch and a thin gold chain. A leather journal half filled with recipes and observations about life. Birthday cards I had sent over the years, saved and rubber-banded together. And at the bottom, a small velvet pouch containing her wedding ring. I held the ring in my palm. It was warm from being stored in the box, as if she had just taken it off. I remembered her hands, soft and spotted with age, always reaching for mine. "You're my steady one," she used to say. "Everyone else is a weather vane. You're the foundation." Then I saw the envelope. It was at the very bottom of the box, beneath everything else. My name was written on the front in unfamiliar handwriting. Formal, legal. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a letter from a law firm, Harrison & Webb, estate planning, dated 3 years ago, 2 weeks after Grandma Eleanor's funeral. "Dear Ms. Caldwell," it read, "we are writing to inform you that you have been named as the sole beneficiary of the property located at 847 Hanover Street, Boston, Massachusetts, as specified in the last will and testament of Eleanor Frances Caldwell. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to begin the transfer process." The letter had been sent to my parents' house. I had been staying there during the funeral. I had left to go back to Boston before it arrived. Someone had intercepted this letter. Someone had seen that it was addressed to me, opened it, read it, and decided to hide it. Then they forged my signature, sold my inheritance, and kept the money. I photographed every page, photographed every document, uploaded everything to a secure cloud folder. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Hi, sweetie. Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" Also, Dad noticed something weird with the insurance. "Can you call us?" They had noticed. I turned off my phone, walked out to the dock, sat with my feet dangling over the black water and watched the stars appear one by one. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them feel, for once, what it was like to be kept in the dark. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 4 years. I sat at my kitchen table with every document I had gathered spread before me. The folder from Aunt Janet, the letter from the law firm, printouts from county records I had accessed over the weekend at the lake house. I approached this the way I approached my job, methodically, analytically, without emotion. Emotion would come later. Right now, I needed facts. The property transfer records told a clear story. Grandma Eleanor's apartment at 847 Hanover Street had been sold to a development company for $420,000. The seller of record was Richard Caldwell, acting under power of attorney for Zoe Marie Caldwell. My father had not just signed one document. He had coordinated with real estate agents. He had hired lawyers. He had closed a deal worth nearly $500,000, all while pretending to my face that the apartment never existed. I picked up my phone and dialed Harrison & Webb, the estate planning firm that had sent the original letter. A paralegal answered. Her voice was polite, professional. I explained who I was, that I was calling about my grandmother Eleanor Caldwell's estate from 3 years ago. I heard typing on the other end. Then she said, "Yes, Ms. Caldwell. We sent correspondence to you at 142 Maple Drive, Concord, New Hampshire. My parents' address. Not mine." "Did anyone respond to that letter?" I asked. A brief hesitation. "Our records show that a Mr. Richard Caldwell called on your behalf. He stated that you were dealing with grief and had asked him to handle the estate matters. He provided a signed power of attorney. We had no reason to question it." I closed my eyes. Of course they had no reason to question it. My father was a respectable man, a church-going, golf-playing retired professional. Why would anyone suspect him of forgery? "I never signed a power of attorney," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I never received your letter, and I never authorized anyone to act on my behalf." The paralegal went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Ms. Caldwell, I think you should speak with one of our attorneys. This sounds like something beyond my scope. I'm going to transfer you." Hold music filled my ear. I waited, heart pounding, while elevator jazz played against the gravity of what I was uncovering. A new voice came on the line. Older, more authoritative. "This is Margaret Webb. I understand you have concerns about the Eleanor Caldwell estate. I explained everything again: the missed letter, the forged signature, the sale I never authorized. Attorney Webb pulled the file while I waited. She confirmed that Richard Caldwell had handled the entire estate process. The power of attorney had appeared legitimate. All documents had been properly notarized. Who notarized the power of attorney? I asked. More typing. A notary named Linda Parsons, based in Concord, New Hampshire. The name hit me like a cold wave. Linda Parsons. I knew that name. She was my mother's friend from church, the woman who came to Christmas dinner sometimes, the woman who would notarize anything for the Caldwell family without asking questions. Ms. Caldwell, Attorney Webb continued, if what you're telling me is accurate, that your signature was forged and you never authorized this sale, this is a serious matter. We're talking about fraud, forgery, and potentially theft of an estate valued at over $400,000. I have the original letter you sent, I said. It was hidden in a box at my parents' house. I never saw it until this weekend. The attorney's tone shifted. I could hear the gravity in her voice. I strongly recommend you retain legal counsel. If you wish, I can provide documentation of everything our firm has on file. It may be useful for whatever action you decide to take. Her last words stayed with me after I hung up. Ms. Caldwell, I've been practicing estate law for 30 years. What you're describing, if true, isn't a family misunderstanding. It's a felony. Tuesday evening, I video called Aunt Janet. I needed to know where the money had gone. She appeared on my screen looking tired, older than her 58 years. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Aunt Janet, you said you had suspicions about the money. I need you to tell me everything. No more protecting anyone. She took a deep breath. Her eyes glistened with something that looked like shame. 3 years ago, right after your grandmother passed, Lauren was in serious trouble. Not just credit card debt, though that was part of it. Her ex-boyfriend, the one before Derek, got her into some investments. That's what he called them. What kind of investments? Gambling. Janet's voice cracked. Sports betting. Poker. It started small, and then it swallowed everything. By the time Lauren got out of that relationship, she owed more money than she could ever repay. We're talking about nearly $400,000. The number hung in the air between us. Nearly $400,000. Almost exactly what Grandma's apartment sold for. Some of it was credit card debt, Janet continued, but some of it was owed to people you don't want to owe money to. Lauren was getting threatening phone calls. Your parents panicked. They needed cash fast, and they didn't have it. She paused, and I finished the sentence for her. But then Grandma died, and left me an apartment worth $450,000. Aunt Janet nodded, tears now streaming down her cheeks. They told Lauren they found a way to help. They told her to focus on healing and finding a good man. They never told her the money came from you. I sat back from my laptop screen. My mind was racing, trying to reconcile two truths that seemed to contradict each other. Lauren was a victim too. She had been manipulated by an ex-boyfriend, trapped by debt, rescued by parents who hid the source of the money. But Lauren was also complicit. She had excluded me from her wedding. She had lied to the family about why I wasn't there. She was living a debt-free life while I unknowingly paid for it. Does Lauren know? I asked. Does she know the money came from my inheritance? I don't think so, Janet said. But Zoe, she's 35 years old. She took nearly $400,000 without asking a single question. She didn't want to know. There's a kind of guilt in that, too. What about Derek? Does he know any of this? Lauren told him she had a difficult past, but that it was behind her. He thinks she's a clean slate. He has no idea his wife's fresh start was funded by fraud. I ended the call and sat in the darkness of my apartment for a long time. The pieces were all falling into place now. Lauren's jealousy at the wedding made a new kind of sense. She couldn't stand next to me knowing what had been done on her behalf. She couldn't look at me without being reminded of the secret she was keeping, even from herself. I thought about my options. I could go to the police, file charges, watch my parents potentially go to prison. I could confront the family directly, demand repayment, accept whatever chaos followed. I could hire a lawyer, build a case, negotiate from a position of strength, or I could do nothing, absorb the loss, preserve what was left of the family. Option 4 was eliminated immediately. I had spent 32 years doing nothing, absorbing, preserving. Look where it got me. I called Maya. "I need a lawyer," I said. "Someone who handles estates and fraud. Someone who won't blink when I tell them my father stole $400,000 from me." Maya didn't hesitate. "I know someone. Her name is Caroline Webb. No relation to the law firm you called. She's tough, she's smart, and she doesn't scare easy. I'll send you her number." There was a pause on the line. Then Maya said something that cut straight through me. "Zoe, once you start this, there's no going back. Are you ready?" I looked around my apartment, at the evidence folders stacked on my table, at the cold coffee I hadn't touched, at the life I had built entirely on my own while my family took and took and took. "I've been going back my whole life," I said. "I'm ready to go forward." After we hung up, my phone buzzed with a new text. I looked at the screen and almost laughed. It was from Lauren. "Hey, haven't heard from you in forever. Derek and I were just talking about doing a little post-wedding celebration. Nothing big, just close family. I was thinking your lake house would be perfect. Can we use it next weekend? Let me know." 3 emojis followed. A heart, a house, a champagne bottle, no mention of the wedding I missed, no apology, no acknowledgement that anything was wrong, just a request for my lake house, the one thing I owned that they hadn't managed to steal. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I screenshot it and added it to the evidence folder. Tomorrow, I would call the lawyer. Tonight, I would let them wait. Friday morning, I woke to pale winter light filtering through my curtains. Lauren's text from the night before was still glowing on my phone screen. I read it again, letting each word sink in. "Hey, haven't heard from you in forever. Derek and I were just talking about doing a little post-wedding celebration. Nothing big, just close family. I was thinking your lake house would be perfect. Can we use it next weekend? Let me know." Close family. The phrase hit differently now. I was close enough to fund Lauren's escape from $400,000 in gambling debt, close enough to pay for our parents' insurance premiums, close enough to bail everyone out of every crisis for the past decade, but I was not close enough to receive a wedding invitation. I got out of bed, made coffee, strong, black, the way I liked it. My hands were steady as I moved through my kitchen, gathering my thoughts. The evidence folder was locked in a fireproof safe now. The cloud backup was secure. I was prepared. But before I responded to Lauren, I had a phone call to make. Caroline Webb answered on the second ring. Her voice was professional and direct, exactly what I needed. "Ms. Caldwell, Maya told me to expect your call. She said it was urgent and family-related." I cleared 30 minutes. I gave her the condensed version, the wedding exclusion, the forged power of attorney, the apartment sold without my knowledge, the $420,000 that had vanished into my sister's debt, the documents I had gathered. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Do you have documentation?" she asked. "Everything. The original will, the lawyer's letter that was intercepted, the forged power of attorney, property transfer records, and a witness, my aunt, who can testify to the family's statements." Another pause. Then Caroline spoke again, her voice measured and serious. "Ms. Caldwell, you have a strong case for civil recovery. You also have grounds for criminal charges. Forgery, fraud, theft by deception. But I need to ask you something important. What do you want? Justice? Money? Both? Or something else?" I thought about it. Revenge would feel good for about 5 minutes. Criminal charges would destroy my parents. Money would only replace what was already mine. "I want what's mine," I said finally, "and I want them to know they can't take from me anymore." "Then let's meet Monday. Bring everything. And Ms. Caldwell, don't confront them yet. Don't respond to any requests. Let them wonder. Silence is a powerful tool. I smiled grimly. Actually, there's one request I need to respond to, but don't worry, I'll keep it short. After I hung up, I stared at Lauren's text for a long time. Caroline had said not to confront, but was saying no a confrontation? I thought about my options. If I ignored the text, Lauren would call. Then Mom would call, then Dad. The pressure would escalate until I caved. If I made excuses, said the house was being renovated or already booked, they would push back, ask when it would be available, try to reschedule. They would keep asking until I gave them what they wanted. But if I simply said no, clearly and directly with no explanation, they would not know how to respond. I had never refused them anything before. I had never set a boundary without cushioning it with apologies and justifications. My whole life, I had given explanations. I had made them comfortable with my choices. I had bent myself into shapes that fit their expectations. What if I just stopped? I picked up my phone, typed 7 words. No, the lake house isn't available. I did not add sorry. I did not offer an alternative date. I did not explain. 7 words. Send. Then I waited. 3 minutes passed. 5. I watched the screen. The 3 dots appeared. Lauren was typing. What do you mean it's not available? You barely use it. We just need it for 1 weekend, I typed back. It's not available. Lauren's response came faster this time. Zoe, come on, don't be difficult. Derek's family is coming from out of state. We already told them we had a place. You can't do this to us. I noticed the word she used. Us, not me. Already she was positioning this as Zoe versus the family, Zoe versus the newlyweds, Zoe as the obstacle to everyone else's happiness. I typed back calmly, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just not lending my house. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then a long message came through. This is so typical. You've always been like this. Holding things over people's heads, making everyone feel guilty. I don't know why I expected anything different. I read the message twice, holding things over people's heads. The irony was almost unbearable. I had given and given and given for years. I had never held anything over anyone. I had never even collected on the debts they owed me. I sent one final message. I'm not going to argue about this. The answer is no. Then I muted the conversation. I didn't block Lauren, not yet, but whatever came next, I would read it on my own terms. Exactly 8 minutes later, my phone rang. The screen showed Mom. 8 minutes. That was how fast the family machine mobilized. I could have let it go to voicemail, but I wanted to hear it. I wanted to know exactly what they would say. Hi, Mom. Her voice was not the sweet, casual tone from her recent texts. This was the other voice, the one I had heard growing up when I didn't perform as expected. Cold, controlled, edged with disappointment. Zoe, I just got off the phone with Lauren. She's very upset. I imagine she is. She said you refused to let them use the lake house. Zoe, that's incredibly selfish. They're newlyweds. They have guests coming. You're punishing your sister over some silly misunderstanding about the wedding. I let the word hang in the air between us. Misunderstanding. The invitation situation, Mom continued, her voice tightening. Look, there was confusion with the dates. It happens. Lauren feels terrible about it. But this isn't the way to handle your feelings by withholding things from family. Withholding. As if my personal property, purchased with my own money, earned through my own labor, was something I was obligated to share. Mom, I said, keeping my voice even, I'm not withholding anything. I'm choosing not to lend my house. Those are different things. Her tone sharpened. You're being petty. This isn't like you. What's going on? For a moment I considered telling her everything. I could mention the apartment right now, the forged signature, the $400,000. I could watch her scramble for excuses in real time. But Caroline's voice echoed in my head. Silence is a powerful tool. Nothing's going on, I said. I just don't want to lend my house. I have to go, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, Not from fear, from adrenaline. I had just hung up on my mother for the first time in my life. Over the next 3 hours, my phone lit up repeatedly. Lauren unmuted briefly so I could check. "I can't believe you're doing this. Derek is so disappointed. His mother was excited about the lake. Thanks for ruining everything." Dad, via email. "Zoe, your mother is upset. Call her back. Let's work this out like adults." Lauren again, "You know what? Forget it. We'll find somewhere else. But don't expect me to pretend this is okay." Mom, via text, "I hope you're happy." Lauren is crying. I scrolled through the messages and noticed what was missing. No one asked why. No one asked if I was okay. No one acknowledged the wedding exclusion or offered any kind of genuine apology. Every message was about their inconvenience, their plans, their feelings. I said one word, no, and suddenly I was the villain. They had taken from me for years and I was a good daughter. I refused once, and I was selfish, petty, a ruiner of everything. I needed air. I walked for an hour through the Boston streets. The cold bit at my cheeks and stung my lungs. I walked with no destination, just movement, letting my body process what my mind couldn't yet accept. By the time I returned to my apartment, something had settled inside me. The shaking was gone. The guilt that usually followed any family friction, the guilt I had been trained to feel, was absent. I sat down, opened my laptop, began organizing the evidence folder for Monday's meeting with Caroline. My phone buzzed one more time, a number I didn't recognize. "Zoe, this is Derek. Can we talk? I think there's a lot I don't understand." I stared at the message. Derek, Lauren's husband, the man who didn't know about his wife's gambling past, or the stolen inheritance, or any of the secrets buried beneath their shiny new marriage. I typed back, "Yes, but not today. I'll reach out when I'm ready." The game had just gotten more complicated. Saturday morning, I woke to 17 new notifications on my phone. The family offensive had begun in earnest. The first was an email from my father, sent at 11:47 the night before. The subject line read, "A word about family." I opened it and found a long, rambling message about blood bonds and duty. He wrote that my grandmother would be ashamed of my behavior. He reminded me that they had raised me better than this. He explained that Lauren had always been more fragile and that I knew that. "The strong must support the weak," he wrote. "That's what family means." The second was a voicemail from my mother, left at 7:23 in the morning. Her voice was thick with theatrical tears. She said she couldn't sleep, that my father couldn't sleep, that Lauren had called them crying at midnight. She claimed she didn't understand where this was coming from. "We've always been such a close family," she said. "If this is about the wedding, we can talk about it. But punishing everyone won't solve anything." Then came the texts from Lauren, scattered throughout the night like shrapnel. 12:15 in the morning. "Fine, be that way." 1:48. "You know what? I'm sorry I even asked. I should have known you'd make this about yourself." 3:22. "Mom told me you've been weird lately, canceling stuff, not returning calls. Are you having some kind of breakdown?" 6:55. "Derek wants to meet with you. I told him it's pointless, but he insists. Don't fill his head with your victim narrative." Victim narrative. I laughed out loud at that one, a sharp, bitter sound in my quiet apartment. I was the one who had been robbed, excluded, gaslit, but somehow I was the one with a victim narrative. Saturday afternoon brought an unexpected phone call. My cousin Megan, who I hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years, suddenly wanted to check in. "Hey, Zoe," she said, her voice sweet and concerned. "Lauren mentioned you guys are having some tension. I just wanted to see how you're doing. You know, the lake house thing. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Lauren's been through so much with the wedding stress. Maybe you could reconsider?" I recognized the script immediately. They were deploying flying monkeys. Family members who hadn't bothered to call in years were suddenly checking in, all steering the conversation toward the same destination. Zoe should give in. Zoe should apologize. Zoe should share the lake house. Zoe should stop being difficult. Saturday evening brought an email from my Uncle Robert. A man who had forgotten my last 3 birthdays wrote to tell me that life was too short for grudges. "Your grandmother always said family comes first," he added. I didn't respond to any of them. Each message got read, noted, and filed away in my memory. But I gave them nothing back. No explanations, no defenses, just silence. They had never coordinated this hard for anything in my life. Not for my graduation, not for my promotion, not when I was in the hospital with appendicitis at 26 and spent 3 days alone because everyone was too busy. But refused to lend a lake house, and suddenly everyone had my phone number. "Sunday morning," Derek texted again. "I know this is awkward, but I really think we should talk. Just us, no Lauren, please." I stared at the message for a long time, then I agreed to meet him Monday afternoon. The coffee shop I chose was in Back Bay, neutral territory, public, populated, and nowhere near family spaces. A place for conversations that needed witnesses. Derek was already there when I arrived. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw like he hadn't shaved in days. His hands wrapped around a coffee cup as if he needed the warmth to stay upright. He didn't look like a glowing newlywed. He looked like a man whose world was starting to crack. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as I sat down across from him. "I know this is weird." "You said you don't understand things," I replied. "What things?" He stared at his coffee for a moment before answering. "The wedding, not inviting you. Lauren told me it was your choice. She said you had some work thing, that you two weren't close anyway. But then I saw how your mom talked about you at the reception. Like you were a problem. And the story didn't match." He looked up at me. His eyes were searching, confused, desperate for something that made sense. Then the lake house thing happened. And I watched Lauren melt down like you'd stolen something from her. Not disappointed, angry, entitled. I asked her why it mattered so much and she couldn't give me a straight answer. I kept my expression neutral. "What do you want to know, Derek?" He leaned forward. "I want to know who I married, because the woman I proposed to doesn't match the woman I've seen this past week." I considered how much to reveal. Derek was an innocent party in all of this, but he was also Lauren's husband. Anything I said could get back to her, could give them time to prepare their defense. But looking at his face, I saw genuine confusion, genuine pain. He wasn't here to manipulate me. He was here because something was very wrong in his marriage, and he knew I might have answers. I decided to give him enough to open his eyes. Just enough, let him find the rest himself. I told him about the wedding, the real story. How I had found out from Aunt Janet 3 days after the ceremony. How my mother had told everyone I sent a gift that I never bought. How I had been deliberately excluded and then lied about to the entire family. Derek's face went pale. "She told me you knew. She said you were okay with not coming. I found out from my aunt, 3 days after it happened." He set down his coffee cup. His hands were shaking now. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. If I had known, I would never have." He stopped, rubbed his face. God, what else don't I know? Then he said something that made my heart stop. Lauren mentioned once that there was family money, an apartment downtown that got sold. She said the proceeds went to renovating your parents' house. I asked if you got a share and she said you didn't need it, that you had your own career, your own savings, that you were fine. The apartment. Lauren had mentioned it to Derek, but she had told him the money went to renovations, not to paying off her gambling debts. Either Lauren didn't know the truth, or she was continuing the lie with her own husband. I chose my words carefully. Derek, that apartment didn't go to renovations. And there are things about that sale that aren't what they seem. What do you mean? I looked him in the eyes. Ask Lauren what happened to the apartment money, not your in-laws. Lauren, watch her face when she answers. Monday evening, I went to Maya's apartment. I needed to talk to someone who would tell me the truth, even if it was hard to hear. Maya listened to everything. The family siege, Derek's meeting, the revelation that Lauren had told a different story about the apartment. This is interesting, Maya said when I finished. So Lauren either doesn't know the truth, that the apartment money went to her debts, or she knows and she's covering it up with Derek. If she doesn't know, I said, then she's a victim too. My parents lied to her. They told her they found a way to help. Maya leaned forward. Zoe, even if Lauren didn't know where the money came from, she accepted $400,000 without questioning it. She built her whole new life, the fresh start, the good guy husband, the pretty wedding, on that money. At some point, not asking becomes a choice. She paused, letting that sink in. And from a legal standpoint, this isn't just family drama. Your father committed forgery. Your parents committed fraud. Whether Lauren knew or not, she benefited from the proceeds of a crime. This is felony territory. I'm meeting with Caroline Webb tomorrow, I said. I'm bringing everything. Maya nodded. Good. But Zoe, once you walk into that lawyer's office and start building a case, you're crossing a line. Your family as you knew it? It's over. I walked home through the dark Boston streets. The cold bit at my cheeks. I thought about Maya's words. Your family as you knew it. It's over. But was it ever real? The Sunday dinners, the holiday cards, the I love you at the end of phone calls? Was any of it genuine? Or was I always just the bank account with a heartbeat? The problem solver who didn't deserve a seat at the wedding table? Maybe the family I thought I had never existed. Maybe I had been grieving something that was never really mine. I got home, opened the evidence folder, started printing everything for tomorrow's meeting. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. I asked Lauren about the apartment. She got defensive and left the room. Then she made a phone call. I heard her say, Zoe knows. I don't know what that means, but I think something is very wrong here. I stared at the two words. Zoe knows. The game was changing. They were realizing I wasn't in the dark anymore. Good. Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, I walked into the law office of Caroline Webb. It was a converted brownstone near the financial district. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, framed degrees on every wall. The whole place smelled like old money and consequences. I carried a leather briefcase I had borrowed from Maya. Inside was every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence I had gathered over the past 2 weeks. My hands were steady, but my heart was not. The receptionist offered me coffee. I declined. My stomach was too tight for anything. Caroline Webb emerged from a corner office a few minutes later. She was in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun, sharp eyes behind elegant glasses. She shook my hand firmly. Not warm, but not cold either. Professional, competent. Ms. Caldwell, she said, Maya speaks highly of you. She also told me the basics, but I want to hear everything from you. In your own words. Start from the wedding. In my own words. I couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked for those. I opened the briefcase and laid the documents on her desk like cards in a game I was finally ready to play. I walked Caroline through everything chronologically. The wedding exclusion and the cover story my mother had invented. Aunt Janet's revelations about Lauren's jealousy. My grandmother's will which left me the apartment. The intercepted lawyer's letter. The forged power of attorney with my fake signature. The property sale for $420,000. The notary connection, Linda Parsons, my mother's friend from church. And the timeline that matched perfectly with Lauren's gambling debt crisis. Caroline examined each document carefully. She was quiet, methodical. She made notes on a yellow legal pad and occasionally asked clarifying questions. This signature, she said, pointing to the power of attorney. You're certain you never signed this? I've never seen this document before in my life. That's not my handwriting. The notary, Linda Parsons. Have you had any previous relationship with her? She's a friend of my mother's. They go to the same church. She comes to Christmas dinner sometimes. And your aunt. She's willing to testify to what she told you? She said she would. She gave me all the documents willingly. After 45 minutes, Caroline set down her pen. She removed her glasses and looked directly at me. Ms. Caldwell, You have one of the most comprehensive cases of estate fraud I've seen in 15 years. The words hung in the air between us. She continued with the legal breakdown. Forgery of the power of attorney was a Class C felony in Massachusetts, up to 10 years in prison. Fraudulent transfer of property carried both civil and criminal liability. Theft by deception, given the amount involved, was a serious felony charge. And if the notary had been a knowing participant, she was liable too. Your father committed crimes, Caroline said. Your mother, at minimum, was complicit. There's enough here to pursue criminal charges if you want. There's also enough for a civil suit to recover the full value of the property plus damages. I felt the weight of those words settle over me. Criminal charges. Up to 10 years. My father, in prison. Before we discuss strategy, Caroline continued, I need to understand what you want. This isn't just about what's legally possible. It's about what you can live with. She laid out my options clearly. Option 1 was criminal prosecution. I could file a report with the district attorney, provide evidence of forgery and fraud, and potentially see my father charged with multiple felonies. The consequence would be public exposure, possible prison time, and the complete destruction of whatever remained of my family. Option 2 was a civil lawsuit. I could sue for recovery of the property value plus damages, force a settlement, or go to trial. It would be expensive and lengthy, but it would keep things out of criminal court. Option 3 was a negotiated settlement. I could approach the family through legal channels, demand repayment, and threaten options 1 and 2 if they refused. It was the fastest path and the one that gave me the most control. Most clients in your situation want option 3 first, Caroline said. It's the least destructive path, but it only works if the other side believes you're willing to escalate. What do you recommend? We send a formal demand letter. Give them 7 days to respond. Make clear that failure to comply will result in both criminal referral and civil action. Let them choose how ugly this gets. I nodded slowly. That felt right. Not destruction for its own sake, just consequences for their choices. Then Caroline raised another question. There's one more thing, she said. What about your sister? From what you've told me, Lauren may not know the truth about where the money came from. If we proceed, especially with criminal charges, she'll find out. Her marriage will likely end. Her life will unravel. I thought about Lauren, the jealousy that had led to my exclusion from the wedding, the entitlement over the lake house, the victim narrative accusation. But I also remembered Lauren at 16, crying over a breakup, asking me for advice. Lauren at 25, calling from a bad date, needing me to come pick her up. The sister who existed before she became someone I didn't recognize. Do you want Lauren to know the truth? Caroline asked. And if so, do you want her to find out from you, from me, from your parents, or from a courtroom? I thought about it carefully. I used to think protecting Lauren was my job. That's what I always did. But Lauren isn't a child. She's 35 years old. She accepted money she didn't earn, built a life on it, and never asked a single question. And when it came time to include me in her happiest day, she chose to erase me. I want my parents to tell her the truth, I said finally. They created this lie. They should be the ones to explain it. Give them the chance to come clean before everything becomes public. Caroline made a note. We can build that into the demand letter. A condition. Full disclosure to Lauren within the settlement timeline. If they don't comply, we escalate. She looked up at me. And Derek? He's already suspicious. I considered Derek carefully. He had reached out on his own, asked questions, confronted Lauren and got panic in return. He was an innocent party, married to a woman whose fresh start was funded by stolen money. If this goes to court, Caroline said, Derek will be deposed. He'll learn everything. Not just about the apartment, but about Lauren's gambling past, the ex-boyfriend, the debts. His entire understanding of his wife will collapse in a courtroom. He deserves to know, I said. But not from a lawyer, not from a courtroom. Can we give them a window, my parents and Lauren, to tell Derek the truth before any legal action becomes public? Let them have the dignity of confession before the humiliation of exposure. Caroline raised an eyebrow slightly. That's more generous than most clients in your position. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said. I'm doing this for what's right. If they choose deception again, that's on them. But I won't be the one who destroys Derek without giving him a chance to hear it from his wife. Caroline studied me for a long moment. You're not what I expected, Ms. Caldwell. We spent the next hour drafting the demand letter together. It was addressed to Richard and Diane Caldwell. It referenced the forged power of attorney and included a copy as an attachment. It referenced the unauthorized sale of 847 Hanover Street. It demanded full restitution of $420,000, plus interest and legal fees. It demanded full disclosure to Lauren Caldwell regarding the source of funds used to pay her debts. The timeline was 7 calendar days to respond. Failure to comply would result in criminal referral to the Suffolk County District Attorney and a civil lawsuit for fraud, forgery, and theft. Caroline added one more element. I'm also including a preservation notice. If they destroy any evidence, emails, bank statements, anything, that's obstruction. Another felony. She printed the letter and slid it across the desk. I read it once, twice. This piece of paper would end my family as I knew it, but that family had ended a long time ago. Maybe before I was even born. I signed it. Caroline nodded with something like respect. I'll send it certified mail and email. They'll have it by tomorrow afternoon. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Linda Parsons. Your mother gave me your number. I think we should talk before this goes any further. Please, there's something you don't know. Linda Parsons. The notary. My mother's church friend. The woman who had notarized the forged signature. Now she wanted to talk. I stared at the message, then showed it to Caroline, her eyes narrowed with interest. Don't reply yet, but don't delete it either. This just got very interesting. Wednesday morning I met Linda Parsons at a diner in Quincy. It was far enough from Concord that we wouldn't be recognized. Caroline had advised me to listen, but not commit. Record the conversation if possible. Linda looked exactly like I remembered her from those occasional Christmas dinners. Late 50s, church-going respectable in a floral blouse and pearl earrings, but her hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. She looked like a woman who hadn't slept in days. Thank you for meeting me, she said before I even sat down. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But when I heard Diane talking about lawyers, I knew it was falling apart, and I can't go to prison for them, Zoe. I won't. I slid into the booth across from her. Tell me what happened. She took a shaky breath and began. 3 years ago, your mother called me. She was frantic. She said there was a family emergency. She told me you were too overwhelmed with grief to handle paperwork and that you had asked your father to manage the estate. Linda's eyes darted around the diner, checking for familiar faces. She asked me to notarize a power of attorney, said it was just a formality. Your father signed in front of me. The signature for you was already on the document. I didn't look closely. Diane said everything was approved. I trusted her. We've been friends for 30 years. Did you know what the power of attorney was for? I asked. Did you know they were selling my inheritance? Not at first, but later, Diane let something slip. Something about Lauren's problem being solved. I put the pieces together. By then it was too late. I was already part of it. I studied her face. The guilt was real. The fear was real. But I needed to know if she was here to help me or to protect herself. Why are you telling me this now? Because I heard Diane on the phone last week. She was panicking. She said something that made my blood run cold. What did she say? Linda leaned forward and lowered her voice. She said, if Zoe finds the emails, we're finished. What emails, Zoe? What did they put in writing? I didn't know about any emails, but my mother's fear suggested there was a digital trail I hadn't found yet. Something damning enough that its discovery kept her up at night. Linda continued, her voice barely above a whisper. She mentioned something about the arrangement being documented. She was terrified you would find proof that Lauren knew more than she let on. The words hit me like a punch. Lauren knew more than she let on. My mother's fear suggested Lauren wasn't as innocent as everyone claimed, that she might have been aware the money came from somewhere questionable, even if she didn't know the specifics. "I'll testify," Linda said suddenly. "I'll tell them I notarized the document without verifying the signature. I'll confirm Diane and Richard coordinated the whole thing. Just please. If there's a way to keep me out of prison, I'll cooperate fully." "I'm not the one who decides that," I said. "My lawyer will be in touch. But Linda, if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of setup to protect my mother, it will make things worse, not better." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know what I did was wrong. I've known for 3 years. I just didn't have the courage to do anything about it. I'm sorry, Zoe. I'm so sorry." I left the diner with one thought burning in my mind: the emails. I needed to find them. Thursday afternoon, the demand letter landed. I knew because my phone hadn't stopped buzzing since noon. My father left a voicemail at 2:17. His voice was tight, controlled, the voice he used when he was terrified but wouldn't admit it. "Zoe, we received a letter from an attorney. This is a mistake. We need to talk as a family. Call me back, please." My mother texted at 2:34. "How could you do this to us? Your own parents? We gave you everything and this is how you repay us?" 7 minutes later, another text from her. "You've broken my heart. I can't stop crying. Your father is beside himself. Are you happy now?" Lauren texted at 3:15. "What the hell is going on? Mom just called me hysterical. She said you're suing them? For what? Call me right now." I didn't respond to any of them. I let them sit with the weight of the letter, let them understand that words and tears wouldn't make this disappear. They were panicking, not because they were innocent and confused. If they were innocent, they would be asking questions, not making accusations. They were panicking because they were guilty, and they had just realized I had proof. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Derek. "I need to see you, tonight if possible." I found the emails. I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. His voice was hollow, like someone who had been crying and trying to hide it. "I found them, Zoe. I found everything." He explained what happened. After the demand letter arrived, the house erupted in chaos. Lauren was on the phone with her mother for an hour, door closed, voice raised. Derek knew something was deeply wrong. When Lauren went to take a shower, he did something he had never done before. He looked at her laptop. She had left her email open. "There was a folder labeled Family Private," he said. "Inside I found emails between Lauren and your parents from 3 years ago." His voice cracked as he continued. They were discussing the debt situation, finding a solution. "There was a message from Lauren to your mother that said, 'Are you sure Zoe won't find out? I can't have this following me into my new life.'" I closed my eyes. There it was. Proof that Lauren knew. "Your father replied," Derek continued. He wrote, "It's handled. The apartment is sold. The money is transferred. Zoe doesn't know anything about the inheritance. She never will." And Lauren's response? "Thank God. I can finally start fresh. Derek never needs to know any of this." Derek's voice broke completely. She knew Zoe. She didn't know every detail, but she knew enough. She knew money was coming from somewhere to save her. She knew it had something to do with you, and she asked them to make sure you never found out. The silence stretched between us. "I don't know who I married," Derek said finally. "I thought she was starting fresh. Turns out she was just burying the past." "Derek," I said carefully, "do you have copies of those emails?" I took screenshots. I forwarded copies to myself. Before she got out of the shower. "Can you send them to me?" He hesitated for a long moment. "If I do this, if I give you proof that my wife was part of this, everything falls apart. My marriage, her life, our future." I understood his hesitation, but I also needed him to see the truth clearly. "Derek, Do you want to spend the rest of your life with someone who built your relationship on a lie? Someone who watched her sister get robbed and asked her parents to make sure it stayed hidden? The silence stretched again. Then I heard him exhale. I'll send them. But Zoe, I need to be there when this ends. I need to look her in the eyes and understand how she could do this. Then come to the meeting. When my lawyer sets up the final confrontation, I'll make sure you're there. She's not who I thought she was, Derek said quietly. None of them are. 10 minutes later, the screenshots arrived in my inbox. 3 years of lies, documented in black and white. I read through everything twice. The revelations confirmed what I had suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. Lauren knew money was being used to pay her debts. She specifically asked her parents to keep me in the dark. She referred to this as her fresh start, as if my inheritance was just cleanup for her mistakes. The wedding exclusion wasn't just about jealousy, it was about guilt. Lauren couldn't face me knowing what she had participated in. She couldn't stand next to me at the altar while carrying the weight of what she had allowed to happen. She wasn't protecting herself from my intensity. She was protecting herself from my questions, from my eyes, from the chance that I might look at her and see the truth. I forwarded everything to Caroline Webb, attached Linda Parsons's confession summary. Wrote one line at the top. We have everything. Let's end this. Caroline's reply came 20 minutes later. Received. I'm calling the Caldwell's attorney tomorrow morning. We'll set a meeting. Bring Derek, bring your aunt. It's time for them to face what they've done. Friday morning my phone rang. It was Lauren. Her voice was different, not angry, not defensive, small, scared. Zoe, she said, I need to tell you something, before the meeting, before anyone else. I need you to know that I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I let the silence stretch between us. Then I spoke, my voice cold and even. Then come to the meeting. Say it to my face. Say it in front of Derek, in front of Mom and Dad. And then we'll see what you really mean. I hung up before she could respond. The final confrontation was set. Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I walked into the conference room at Caroline Webb's law office. A long mahogany table dominated the space. Water glasses sat untouched at each seat. Gray winter light filtered through the windows overlooking the Boston skyline. Caroline was already seated at the head of the table. Aunt Janet sat to my right. She had insisted on coming. I was there when this started, she had said. I want to be there when it ends. Derek arrived a few minutes later. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 1 week. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven jaw. He still wore his wedding ring, but he kept touching it, twisting it, like it no longer fit properly. He nodded at me without speaking and took a seat at the far end of the table. Then the door opened again, and my family walked in. My father entered first. Richard Caldwell, 63 years old, wearing his best suit like armor. My mother followed close behind, clutching her purse against her chest. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup slightly smudged. She had been crying, or wanted us to think she had. Lauren came last. She looked smaller than I remembered, pale, uncertain. She avoided my eyes as she took her seat. They had brought their own lawyer, a nervous-looking man in a cheap suit who clearly did not want to be there. No one said hello. No one offered handshakes. The air was thick with 3 years of lies about to be exposed. Lauren's eyes finally met mine. For a split second, something flickered there. Fear. Guilt. Maybe even the ghost of the sister she used to be. Then it was gone, replaced by a careful blankness. Caroline cleared her throat and took control of the room. Thank you all for coming. We're here because my client, Zoe Caldwell, has evidence of fraud, forgery, and theft committed against her by members of her immediate family. The purpose of this meeting is to reach a resolution before we proceed to criminal referral and civil litigation. My father interrupted immediately. This is ridiculous. We're family. Whatever misunderstanding has occurred here can be resolved without lawyers and threats. Caroline's voice remained calm but firm. Mr. Caldwell, I'm going to stop you there. We're past the point of misunderstanding. We have the forged power of attorney, we have the property transfer records, we have the notary's sworn statement, and we have... She paused and looked directly at Lauren. Emails. The color drained from my sister's face. Her eyes darted to Derek. He didn't look back. My mother tried next, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. Whatever you think you have, there's an explanation. We were trying to protect... Caroline cut her off. Mrs. Caldwell, you'll have your opportunity to speak. But first, my client has something to say. Every eye in the room turned to me. I took a breath. This was the moment I had been preparing for. Not revenge. Truth. 3 weeks ago, I said, keeping my voice steady, I found out my sister got married without me. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately excluded. Mom told the family I sent a gift and my best wishes. That was a lie. I never knew the wedding happened until Aunt Janet called to ask why I wasn't there. I looked at each of them in turn. My father staring at the table, my mother dabbing at her eyes. Lauren frozen in her seat. When I asked why, I was told I'm too intense, that I make people uncomfortable, that Lauren wanted a stress-free day. For 32 years, I've been the one who shows up, the one who pays, the one who fixes problems. And my reward was to be erased from my only sister's wedding. I let the words settle before continuing. But the wedding was just the beginning. Because when I started asking questions, I discovered something worse. 3 years ago, Grandma Eleanor left me an apartment. I never knew about it. The letter from the estate lawyer was intercepted. Dad forged my signature on a power of attorney. The apartment was sold for $420,000, and every penny went to pay off Lauren's gambling debts. Lauren's head snapped up. Gambling debts? What are you talking about? I didn't have gambling debts. My mother reached for her arm. Lauren, honey, let me explain. But Lauren pulled away, her voice rising. Mom, what is she talking about? I provided the answer. $380,000. Your ex-boyfriend, Craig. The investments that turned out to be sports betting and poker. The debts that followed you. The people who were calling and threatening. Lauren's face crumbled. How do you know about that? That was supposed to be... She turned to our parents. You said you found a way. You said it was taken care of. You never said it was Zoe's money. My mother started crying in earnest now. We were protecting you, both of you. Zoe didn't need the apartment. She has her own career, her own savings. You needed help. We did what any parents would do. I shook my head slowly. You didn't protect anyone. You stole from me to enable her, and you lied to both of us about it. Caroline slid a printed stack of papers across the table. These are emails between Lauren and her parents from 3 years ago. They document Lauren's knowledge that money was being used to solve her debt problems, and they document her specific request that Zoe never find out. Lauren stared at the papers like they might bite her. On top was her own email, her own words printed in black and white. Are you sure Zoe won't find out? I can't have this following me into my new life. Derek spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the room like a blade. You wrote that, Lauren. I found it on your laptop. You knew. Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. Derek stood slowly, pushing back his chair. The sound scraped against the silence. When I proposed to you, he said, you told me you had a difficult past but that it was behind you. You said you wanted a fresh start. I believed you. I loved you. He picked up the printed email. But this isn't a fresh start. This is a cover-up. You took $400,000 that belonged to your sister Lauren, and you used it to erase your mistakes. Then you excluded her from our wedding because you couldn't stand to look at her knowing what you'd done. Lauren's voice came out desperate, pleading. Derek, I didn't know it was her inheritance. I swear. My parents said they had savings that they... Derek cut her off. You didn't ask. You didn't want to know. That's almost worse. He held up his phone. I read all the emails, Lauren. Every single one. You weren't innocent. You were careful. Lauren broke down completely. Loud, ugly sobs filled the conference room. But for the first time in my life, I felt no urge to comfort her. Derek reached down to his left hand. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled off his wedding ring. He placed it on the table. The small, sharp sound echoed in the silence. "I loved someone who doesn't exist," he said. "The woman I married was a story you told me. I can't spend the rest of my life living in a fiction." He turned to me. "I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better from everyone in this room." Then he walked out. The door closed behind him with a finality that seemed to seal something. Lauren was still crying. My mother was holding her, stroking her hair. My father stared at the table, defeated, with nothing left to say. I stood and addressed my parents one last time. "You stole $420,000 from me. You forged my signature. You committed multiple felonies. And when you had the chance to include me in Lauren's wedding, to let me be part of this family, you chose to erase me instead." My mother looked up, still crying. "We always thought you'd be fine, Zoe. You're the strong one. Lauren needed—" "I am fine," I said. "But not because you raised me to be. Because I raised myself to be. You didn't protect Lauren. You turned me into a bank and turned her into a child who never had to grow up. And now look at us." Caroline intervened, her voice professional and final. "We have settlement terms. You have 72 hours to sign and begin repayment. If not, we file with the district attorney on Friday." I looked at my family one last time, my mother weeping, my father broken. My sister collapsed. "I didn't want it to end like this," I said. "But you made your choices. Every single day for 3 years you chose lies over love. Now you get to live with that." I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Lauren's voice, small and shattered. "Zoe, please." I didn't look back. 2 weeks passed after the confrontation. My apartment felt different now, not emptier but stiller. The evidence folders were gone, filed away at Caroline's office. The emerald dress had been donated weeks ago. The gift I had bought for Lauren's wedding sat in my closet, still wrapped, a relic of a future that never happened. I had been waiting for something, a dramatic phone call, a sobbing voicemail, a family member showing up at my door to plead or accuse. But the silence from my immediate family was almost complete. No more angry texts, no more guilt-laden emails. Just quiet. I filled the days with ordinary things. I went back to work and caught up on projects I had neglected during the chaos. I cooked meals I actually wanted to eat instead of grabbing whatever was fastest. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. I talked to Maya twice, to Aunt Janet once. I didn't check social media. I didn't need to. I thought I would feel more. Triumph, maybe, or grief. But mostly I just felt quiet, like I had set down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. Wednesday morning my phone buzzed with a message from Caroline Webb. "It's done." They signed. "Can you come in tomorrow to finalize?" Thursday, I sat across from Caroline in the same conference room where the confrontation had taken place. This time it was just the two of us. She slid the signed settlement agreement across the table. The financial terms were clear. Richard and Diane Caldwell would sell their family home in Concord. The proceeds would be used to pay me $380,000, the remaining value after legal fees and adjustments. Payment would be completed within 90 days. A lien had been placed on the property to ensure compliance. The legal terms were equally straightforward. I agreed not to pursue criminal charges against my parents. Linda Parsons, the notary, had signed a separate cooperation agreement in exchange for immunity from prosecution. All parties agreed to a mutual non-disparagement clause. There was no formal admission of wrongdoing in the document, which was standard legal language, but the payment itself was the admission. They didn't fight, Caroline said. Their lawyer advised them that going to trial would mean public exposure, potential prison time, and legal fees they couldn't afford. They capitulated within 48 hours of the confrontation. I signed the final page, my real signature this time, not forged, not stolen, mine. Caroline looked at me with something like respect. "How does it feel? Like closing a door I didn't know was open?" She nodded slowly. There's one more thing. Lauren's lawyer reached out separately. She wants to send you a letter. I told them I'd ask if you wanted to receive it. I thought about it for a moment. Then I said yes. The letter arrived the next day. 3 pages, handwritten in Lauren's familiar scrawl. The same handwriting from birthday cards years ago. I read it that evening, sitting alone in my apartment. Zoe, it began, I don't know if you'll read this. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but I need to say these things, even if you never respond. She wrote about Craig, the ex-boyfriend, about how the gambling started small and then swallowed everything, about how she had been terrified and desperate by the time she escaped that relationship, about how she had thought about ending everything before our parents said they could make her problems go away. I didn't ask where the money came from, she wrote. I know that's not an excuse. But I was so desperate to believe it was over that I didn't let myself think about it. I told myself it was family helping family. Then came the part that made my jaw tighten. You've always had everything together. The career, the apartment, the savings. I know that sounds like jealousy because it is. I've always felt like the failure next to you. And instead of working on myself, I pushed you away. I'm sorry you found out this way. I'm sorry for the wedding. I'm sorry for everything. But I also need you to understand the pressure I was under. I read the letter twice. The words blurred together. Sorry, but. Every apology came with a qualification. Every confession came with an excuse. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I wouldn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Over the next week, Aunt Janet kept me updated on the fallout. The extended family knew. Word had spread, not from me but from the ripples of the settlement. The house going up for sale. Derek moving out. Lauren staying with friends. Whispers at church. Whispers in the neighborhood. Whispers among relatives who had always suspected something was wrong with the Caldwell family. Your Uncle Robert called me yesterday, Janet told me over the phone. First time in years. He wanted to know if it was true that Richard forged documents and stole from you. I told him yes. He hasn't spoken to your father since. The shunning had begun. Richard's brother, Uncle Thomas, had cut off contact. Diane's other sister sent a formal email expressing deep disappointment. Cousin Megan, the one who had called to pressure me about the lake house, had gone completely silent. The church community was distancing itself. Linda Parsons no longer attended services there. They're alone now, Janet said. The house they're selling was supposed to be their retirement dream. Now it's collateral for their crimes. Your mother calls me crying every few days. I listen, but I don't comfort. There's nothing I can say that would be both honest and kind. I don't want them to suffer, I said quietly. I just wanted what was mine. I know, honey. But sometimes the truth has consequences of its own. I asked about Derek. Janet had heard from him directly. He had filed for separation 3 days after the confrontation. He moved out of Lauren's apartment and was staying with his brother in Connecticut. The divorce paperwork was already in process. He called me, Janet said. He wanted to thank you, actually. He said discovering the truth was devastating, but living in a lie would have been worse. He's planning to start over somewhere new. Maybe California. He has family there. And Lauren? She's not doing well. She lost her husband. Her parents' support is crumbling. And she's facing the reality that her fresh start was built on fraud. She's seeing a therapist now. Finally. Whether it helps, I don't know. I thought about Lauren at 16, crying over her first heartbreak, asking me for advice. Lauren at 22, calling me from a bad date, needing someone to pick her up. The sister who existed before all of this. I don't hate her, I said. I wish I could. It would be easier. Love and anger can exist in the same heart, Janet replied gently. You don't have to choose. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I've spent so many years trying to hold this family together. I'm tired, Aunt Janet. I'm so tired. Then rest, sweetheart. You've earned it. Friday evening, I sat at home with my laptop open to my bank account. The notification appeared at the top of the screen. Wire transfer received. $380,000 from Caldwell Family Trust, in dissolution. Memo. Settlement. Final. I stared at the number for a long time. $380,000. My grandmother's apartment converted to digits. 3 years of lies converted to compensation. A lifetime of being the family bank account, finally reversed. I thought this moment would feel like victory, champagne, and celebration. But it didn't. It felt like an ending, not a happy one, just a necessary one. I closed the laptop, walked to the window, looked out at the Boston skyline. The same view I had looked at for years, but somehow different now. The feeling that settled over me wasn't joy, it wasn't sorrow. It was something in between. Peace, maybe. The peace of finally knowing where I stood. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Heard the transfer went through. You okay? I typed back. I'm going to the lake house this weekend. Wanna come? Her reply came almost instantly. Absolutely. Bring wine. I'll bring the snacks. Let's celebrate you finally being free. I smiled. A small smile, but real. The first genuine smile in weeks. Free. I had never thought of myself that way before. But maybe that was exactly what I was now. I started packing. The lake house was waiting. And for the first time in my life, I was going there for myself. Saturday morning, I packed a small overnight bag and a bottle of wine Maya had insisted I bring. Nothing else. The Boston skyline shrank in my rearview mirror as I merged onto I-93 North and left the city behind. The drive to New Hampshire took just under 2 hours. I had made this trip dozens of times before, but today felt different. Every other time, I had been driving toward obligation. Preparing the house for family visits that drained me, holidays that left me emptier than when they started. Gatherings where I smiled until my face hurt while writing checks and solving problems no one thanked me for. The landscape changed as I drove. Strip malls gave way to forests. Highway signs announced smaller and smaller towns. The air coming through my cracked window smelled like pine and cold water, and something that felt like freedom. I bought this house 8 years ago with a dream. I had pictured Thanksgiving dinners around the big wooden table. Lauren's future children running on the dock, Mom reading by the fireplace while Dad grilled on the porch. I had built a shrine to a family that never existed. Today, I wasn't driving toward obligation. I was driving toward myself. As I turned onto the gravel road leading to the property, I saw a familiar car already parked in the driveway. Maya had made it first. The lake house sat quiet and solid at the edge of the water. Smoke rose from the chimney. Late afternoon light filtered through bare branches, casting long shadows across the wraparound porch. The lake was steel gray and perfectly still, reflecting the winter sky like a mirror. Maya was on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug of something steaming. "About time, Caldwell," she called out as I climbed out of my car. "I've been here an hour, already claimed the good bedroom." I laughed, a real laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere that hadn't been touched in weeks. Inside, the house smelled like cedar and warmth. Maya had started a fire in the stone fireplace. She had set out cheese and crackers and opened the wine I brought. The flames crackled and popped, throwing dancing shadows on the walls. Then I heard another car approaching. Headlights swept across the windows as a second vehicle pulled into the driveway. Maya smiled. "I hope you don't mind. I invited one more person." Aunt Janet stepped out of the car, carrying a casserole dish and wearing a smile I hadn't seen in years. The three of us settled into the living room as evening fell. The fire kept us warm while the first stars appeared over the lake outside. Janet set the casserole on the coffee table. "Your grandmother's recipe, chicken and rice. Eleanor used to make it every Sunday when I was growing up." She paused, her eyes glistening. I thought it was time to bring some of her back into this house. I looked at the dish. I thought about Grandma Eleanor, the woman who had left me an apartment I never received, whose final gift had been stolen and converted to lies, but also the woman who had saved my birthday cards in a rubber-banded stack, who had called me her steady one, who had seen me when no one else did. We ate together around the fire. The casserole tasted like childhood, like simpler times, like love that didn't come with conditions attached. We didn't talk about the settlement. We didn't talk about Lauren or my parents or the money. We talked about Janet's garden and the tulips she was planning for spring. We talked about Maya's impossible cases at work and the ridiculous judge she had argued in front of last week. We talked about my plans for the house, maybe renovating the kitchen, definitely fixing the rotting dock. This is what I wanted, I realized as I listened to them laugh. Not the big family gatherings, not the performances of togetherness, just this, people who show up, people who see me. After dinner, we took our wine glasses out to the back deck. The lake stretched before us, black and endless under the stars. The cold bit at our cheeks, but no one moved to go inside. The silence was too perfect, the sky too bright. Maya spoke first. "So what now, Caldwell? You've got the money, you've got closure. What's the plan?" I thought about it for a long moment before answering. "I've been thinking about that. The lake house needs work, the dock is rotting, the kitchen could use updating. I thought about selling it, starting fresh somewhere with no memories. But this place was never the problem. My expectations were the problem. I built it for people who didn't deserve it. Maybe it's time to rebuild it for people who do." Janet smiled softly. "Your grandmother would have loved that. She always said a house isn't walls and a roof, it's who you let inside." I looked out at the dark water. I spent so many years trying to earn my place in my family, working harder, giving more, being quieter, smaller, easier. I thought if I just did enough, they would finally see me. But that's not how it works. You can't earn love from people who've decided not to give it. Maya's voice was gentle. "So what did you learn? That family isn't who shares your blood. It's who doesn't ask you to bleed for them. It's who shows up when you're broken, not just when you're useful. It's this." I gestured at the two of them, at the wine glasses and the blankets and the stars reflected on the still water. Janet raised her glass. "To chosen family." Maya clinked hers against it. "To finally being free." I completed the toast. To new beginnings. We stayed on the deck until the cold finally drove us inside. I slept deeply that night, without dreams, without anxiety, without the low hum of worry that had followed me for as long as I could remember. Sunday morning, I woke before the others. Gray dawn light filtered through the curtains. The house was quiet except for the soft sound of the lake against the shore. I made coffee, strong, black, the way I liked it. I wrapped myself in a blanket and stepped out onto the porch. Morning mist hovered over the water. The trees were bare but beautiful, their branches reaching toward a pale sky. A single bird called from somewhere in the distance. I used to wake up anxious. The first thought every morning was a list, what I owed, who I needed to call, what problem I needed to solve for someone else. Today I woke up and the first thought was nothing. Just silence. Just peace. My phone sat on the table inside. No new messages from my parents. No pleas from Lauren. The silence that once would have felt like rejection now felt like freedom. I had lost a mother, a father, a sister. I had lost Sunday dinners and holiday traditions and the illusion of belonging. But I had gained myself. My money, my home, my truth. And the people inside this house who loved me without conditions. I didn't win. There are no winners when a family falls apart. But I survived. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was choosing. I heard footsteps behind me. Maya, wrapped in a ridiculous fuzzy robe, coffee cup in hand. "Room for one more out here?" I smiled. Always. We sat together as the sun rose fully over the lake. The mist burned away. The world woke up around us. I thought about everything that had brought me here. The wedding I wasn't invited to. The inheritance that was stolen. The lies that had been told for years. The confrontation that had shattered everything. And I thought about what I had learned. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was losing my family. I was wrong. The worst thing was losing myself to keep them. For 32 years, I bent, I accommodated, I wrote checks and swallowed words and made myself smaller so they could feel bigger. And when I finally said no, just one word, one boundary, one small act of self-preservation, they called me selfish. They called me cruel. They erased me from a wedding and stole my inheritance and told themselves they were the victims. But here's what I learned. You can't abandon someone who was never really holding on. You can't betray someone who never really saw you. And you can't lose a family that never truly included you. I'm Zoe Caldwell. I'm 32 years old. I lost my parents, my sister, and the story I told myself about who we were. But sitting here, watching the sun rise over water I paid for with my own hands, surrounded by people who showed up when it mattered, I know the truth. I didn't lose anything that was ever really mine. And everything I have now? I chose it. Every single piece. If you're listening to this, maybe you see yourself somewhere in my story. Maybe you're the one who always gives. The one who always shows up. The one who bends until you almost break and wonders why it's never enough. I want you to know something. It's not you. It was never you. And if today is the day you decide to stop bending, to set a boundary, to say that one small word, no, I'm proud of you, even if no one else says it. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you're finally ready to let go of. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, stories about people who stopped sacrificing themselves for people who never appreciated it, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because you're not alone. And your story matters too. I'll see you in the next one. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect.